universe. Movement is the thing inherent. But if we look at it this way, what was this? Did this moment exist before creation? We might assume or conclude that there is no moment before creation. The moment only happens after creation, right? So you can say it's inanimate, state of inanimation before creation, and there's state of animation before creation, after creation. But if you go deeper into this subject, there was neither inanimation or animation before creation. It's nothingness. And this nothingness is infinite. At the same time, it is the essence of nothingness. So from this nothingness state, somehow this whole expansion, this whole creation happened. So the both characteristics are embedded into this creation, where the animation is there and the inanimation is there too. But there is a juxtaposition, of this animation and inanimation in a human system too. And in every system you will find this, by the way. But in the human system, this intersection of animation and inanimation can be called as heart. So what we are going to learn today is certain aspects of this heart. And now when we talk about heart, we are not really referring to a physical heart. So let's get into the topic. If you see the 7 characteristics of life. So there is reproduction. The life has to be reproductive. Otherwise, it would have ended long time. And there is a growth. And there is hereditary or a heredity of the traits. You can see the DNA. And homeostasis, stable or inner conditions it requires. It requires certain conditions for it to survive. And there is a metabolism, and there is a cellular composition and a decomposition response. But this is a general characteristics of a life form. See, when we talk about life forms, we only talk in terms of molecules, right? Do we ever talk about atoms when we talk about life forms? When we talk about minerals and other stuff, we do talk about atoms, how water is formed, it's H2O, water molecules. But when it comes to a life organism, or, we only talk about cells, correct? And are cells made of atoms? Anyone, any takers on it? You can unmute and talk if you do.
Yes.
Cells have atoms. Anyone who read organic chemistry, you say it's all carbon bonding and hydrogen bonding. So what is a typical cell? It's a carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, right? And also some phosphorus in it. And what is a DNA? It's again hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, and nitrogen, right? What are nerves are made of, consists of? Sodium and potassium. And what is proteins? We talk about all the time. What is proteins consist of? It's again carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, all these elements. But so that makes a cell, a biological cell in, an organism. And it's all, the entire system of a body is composition of these cells at a physical level. Does that just define any living organism, or is it more to it? Or even a non-living organism, is it there more to it? Right? If you ask that question, then we come into this aspect, the three bodies. So in a spiritual terms, in a spiritual science, when you get into, whenever someone says a body, how it has to be understood is, any body is like a covering. Think of it like a covering, a layer formed above something. So if you see in this picture, what is the bottommost layer we see there? Is a causal body. And causal body is also referred as soul. Causal body is also referred as Atman in Sanskrit. In the Sanskrit word for causal body is Karan Sharir. The third thing you see here, it's a Karan Sharir. Sharir means body or a covering. And the one level above, the next layer, so these are the layers around the soul, which manifested into different life forms. The next layer is subtle body, what we call the Sukshma Sharir. Sukshma means subtle. And this subtle body consists of something called consciousness, the important one. We are going to learn about it today. I mean, we're going to learn all aspects of this. So most of our discussion today is around subtle body. Mind, manas. Manas is referred as mind. So what is the function of the mind? Is to think. And then ego, ahankar. What is the function of ego? Ego is the identity. It's an identity function. And it's a result of intellect and the mind. So what is intellect? Intellect in Sanskrit is known as buddhi. And we all know what intellect is. So intellect, mind, ego, and consciousness. These are the four elements of the subtle body. And the physical body, all the aspects, the anatomy of the human body or any body, we pretty much know. It consists of the brain and the organs, and the other elements like hands, legs, everything comprises into a physical anatomy. But let's say minerals, does stone has all these three bodies? The answer is yes. But what happens in a stone or any minerals is all these bodies are together as one. So that's why they became inert completely. There's no movement, there's no life in it, like they're dead. But as the bonding between these three bodies is sort of separated, as it separated, the more higher life forms came into existence. For example, the plants at the lowest. From there, there's a little more distance between these bodies, separation, the insects, and then more separation, animals, and more separation, humans. That's why a human life is considered as the most evolved form on this earth, because the way all these three bodies are organized. So the more distance between these two, if you see now in this diagram also, you see there is a more room for subtle body. That means there is a more expansion of consciousness. When we talk about expansion of consciousness, it's all about how much room it got between the coverings. That's all it is. Now, just because there's a more room, there is a more, separated these bodies. The energy field between the movement of the energy field within a human system is something to be understood, and how we can adjust this energy field for our evolution. That is also something to be thought about and understood. Okay. Having said that, there's another point I was thinking, and I kind of slipped my mind. If I remember it again, I will say it. Let's go to the next slide. In physical bodies, right? I mean, if you see if you have, all of you must have heard of the Darwin theory of evolution and things like that. So there is a morphological, physical evolution happened in many ways from the time of creation till today. Whether it's planets, whether it's life forms, across universes, and some of the life forms we know as we perceive is on Earth. The physical evolution, even to develop wings, it took millions of years. So to develop the physical evolution has its own time. It takes its own sweet time. But for me to evolve in a certain way, my only place I can evolve is my subtle body. You can call it as an astral body or a mental body. That's where most of the energy flow or the vibration in the system, like I started with this idea of vibration, right? The vibration or the energy flow in the system, if it is regulated, then there is more scope for this expansion of consciousness. And causal body as a soul, this is the primordial element of any life, right? And but it is something pure, it's unchanging, it's immutable. Those who have heard or learned Bhagavad Gita, he says it's neither born nor dies. It cannot be changed. So the soul as a causal body, it has no evolution, no expansion, no change. It is always eternal, because this is the primordial element. In Indian scriptures, it is referred as Atman, and the superior soul or supreme soul is referred as Paramatman. Sometimes the supreme soul is also referred as God. So I'm not getting into that topic right now, because let's understand the basic elements, and then we can slowly switch to the higher topics. So we saw this picture already, and then so today we are going to talk more about subtle bodies. What is a subtle body? Again, it's a vibrational field of the system. So that's why since it's a vibrational field, an energy field within the system, we don't, at least the anatomy of the human being, we never spoke about where the subtle body is, because it cannot be pinpointed physically. It's not a physical thing. It's a vibrational field, energy field. I mean, we talk about mind, not the brain. I'm referring to mind, the thinking element, where the thinking happens. where the feeling happens, right? So I'm not talking about physical pain here. The feeling, the intuition, the intellect, where all this is happening, it's all happening in the energy field of a system. So that's why it's a layer below it, layer below the physical body. So this is where the spiritual practice makes plays a vital role and makes some difference. So we need some techniques to regulate, purify, and remove all the disturbances of this energy field, so that this subtle body or my consciousness can come in contact with the soul and it can go deeper further. What is the characteristic of the soul? It's all bliss and joy. And if we go further from the soul into the state of Paramatman or the Supreme Soul, that's when we start realizing, that's when the yoga happens. The mergence with the ultimate happens. What is this mergence with the ultimate? Ultimate is nothing but a state. We should not be treating that as another entity. It's a state, all pervading state. So in yogic philosophy, the heart is known as the field of action for the mind. So here, the field of action happens all in the heart region. We're going to understand in the series of these classes what heart region means, what mind region means, what super cosmic mind region means, and all those. We're going to dwell into those topics deep. But let's try to understand the basics to begin with. So there are four main functions of the subtle body, of the vibrationary field. The first and the key thing is consciousness. Why I'm saying key thing as a consciousness? In the physical world, what is the key thing which existed before all this creation? If you ask me, there is a space. But can we determine the space? We, conceptually, theoretically understand space. Can the space be found as space right now in this existence? Because this entire space is occupied with something. There's a planet, there is an atmosphere of the planet, right? So there's no space really as space available. Everything is in space, already filled in, right? Do you guys agree? And so similarly, this consciousness is, everything is placed in this consciousness, like all these planets, everything we see, we don't see, is fed into the space. Everything inside the subtle body is also fit into this space called consciousness. And in that space, what are the key elements? The mind, where thinking and feelings happen, the intellect, which is buddhi, intellect, and ego. These are the key elements. So all these things put together, we call it, in the lower spectrum of the energy field, is called the heart region. It's a lower spectrum. But what we do in this lower spectrum affects the higher spectrums, the higher consciousness levels. And in our last sessions, we did talk about point A and point B. This point A meditation and point B cleaning plays a vital role in this expansion of consciousness and affecting the higher spectrums. That's why, we talk about it so many times in most of our sessions, because we need to understand, realize the importance of this point A and point B. Right? So just like I explained, everything is fit in the consciousness. It's like, where does a painter paints? It's on a canvas. You need a canvas to paint something, right? The same thing, the canvas is the consciousness is the canvas of this subtle body, where all three are playing a role and changing this canvas. Daji gives a very good example. Suppose, we don't exercise hard. We don't exercise our organs, kidneys, and other physical organs, internal organs, right? What do we exercise is we exercise the physical body, our muscles. We run, we lift weights, or we physically work. As the physical activity is increasing, my internal organs are also strengthening. We're not directly strengthening the inner organs. Similarly, the external organs available for our awareness, for example, the mind and the ego and the intellect, when we exercise these three, it automatically affects or makes the consciousness evolve. So that's why we start with the mind. What is the practice we do with the mind? Of course, meditation. So through meditation, we exercise the mind. And through meditation, we refine the intellect. When these two are refined, it also refines the ego. When all these three bodies are refined, and when we remove all the burdens or the distortions in this vibrationary field, which are caused due to our actions, thoughts, they all can be cleansed through the cleaning process. So through cleaning, through meditation, through prayer, we exercise these three elements so that the consciousness starts expanding and evolving. At any point, if you have any question, please unmute yourself and ask the question so that it contributes to the discussion. So you're not interrupting me if you ask me any question in between. So now, how do we, like I mentioned, how do we allow this consciousness to expand or evolve? Right? Just like the example I gave, at a physical level, we strengthen the muscles for the inner organs to strengthen. We exercise our mind, intellect, and ego, so that it sorts of expands the consciousness. It contributes to the evolution of consciousness. And then let's also understand what evolution of consciousness means. These are not just mere words. Everything has certain meaning and everything has certain purpose. Every aspect has certain purpose. So let me play this excerpt from Daji's talk.
Thank you for joining us today to talk about this meditation and health in honor of Doctor's Day. So my name is Dr. Swati Kannan, and I am a surgical dermatologist in San Diego, California. I have been a heartfulness trainer for 2 years and a practitioner for 10. So I'm really delighted to speak to you today. And for the audience, Daji is the global guide for heartfulness meditation. So welcome.
Thank you, Swati. Thank you, and happy Doctor's Day.
You speak of the purification of consciousness as as perhaps the ultimate goal of meditation. So can you define that a little bit more?
Well, I would quote Swami Vivekananda before going into further description of it. He says, any spiritual practice, they all have one common goal. And that common goal is to allow available consciousness to soar higher into superconscious sky. And allow this available consciousness that I'm enjoying right now to go or plunge deeper into the oceans of subconsciousness. If this meditation that I'm doing is truly a vehicle for my evolution, then through this meditation, I should be able to raise my superconsciousness. At the same time, I must be able to expand within my subconsciousness. So that's how I increase the spectrum, the width of my spectrum, going in both directions, you see. And the time comes, it becomes infinite. That is total evolution. See, often we talk of evolution and say, what is the purpose of human life? So, logically, we can come to one conclusion. See, this body cannot evolve. For it to evolve, it will take millions of years. But during my lifetime, it is not going to physically evolve. It will only age. Going forward, I can only decay, become weaker and weaker and weaker. Now, what is behind this body, as I was just saying, out behind this physical body, there were three other bodies we talked about, based on the four elements, Manas, Buddhi, Chit, and Ahankar. Manas means mind, Buddhi means intellect, Chit is consciousness, and Ahankar is ego. Out of these four, three things, Manas, Buddhi, and Ahankar, they play out on a canvas of Chit or consciousness. And behind this, there is the soul. And now it is said that soul is eternal, pure, unchanging, immutable. That means it cannot evolve. Things which is immutable cannot change, cannot be transformed. So my body cannot evolve and change. I'm sure it can change, but it cannot evolve. Soul cannot evolve because it is immutable. So what are we playing with in human life? We are playing with these inner bodies, Manas, Buddhi, Chit, and Ahankar. The main thing is Chit. And how Chit or consciousness evolves by taking the help of Manas, Buddhi, and Ahankar. We make use of our own ego for my own evolution. If I allow this ego to prevail on someone, for example, I get angry on someone for whatever reason, I'm using my ego to prevail and to assert myself. But that is going to hurt others, and you will also be hurt in the process. You contract. Your consciousness will also contract. You will feel hurt despite the fact that you wanted to hurt others, but getting angry has made you angry. Getting angry had made you sad, and it will contract your consciousness. If you look at using the Manas, what is the role of Manas or the mind? It is to think. Now, when this Manas evolves, what happens to its function of thinking? We move from thinking to feeling. Usually we think rather than feel things first. Have you seen the difference between your father and mother? Father is a thinking fellow. Mother is a feeling lady.
Right.
Right? And you must have seen also, and others also can contribute to this conclusion, that when you are talking to someone and when you have a lot of problems, and in a business world or a job, and you keep this thing in your mind for a long time, and your wife or your mother or your sister tells you, why are you you look so troubled? Your sister or your wife or your mother might tell you, oh, this is the solution. Even before you share the entire story, halfway through, they're able to tell you the whole solution of it. Because they're able to feel things.
Mhm.
And through feeling, I think you are able to come to the right conclusion. Namaste.
So, in order to, this one interesting thing I would like to share, I just thought about it. I did mention about this animate and inanimate states. So the more into an inanimate state when the mind dwells in, it is reaching this super conscious state as it moves more towards it, and as it more moves towards the animate state, it goes into this awareness conscious state or the lower conscious state. So there is, within every the chakra or the points which we are going to discuss, I'll bring it up over there again since I remembered this. I'm kind of saying it. So it has a lower superconscious state and a higher superconscious state at every level. So in order for the mind to go into the higher conscious state and expanded conscious state, the mind has to go towards this inanimate state. And like I mentioned, the heart is that intersection. So when we meditate on this heart, when we go deeper into towards it, slowly we start moving towards this higher conscious state within that same space. But as it expands more and more, so we move from one level of consciousness to another level at different stages of this expansion. So to begin with, we start with the heart region, and then we keep on expanding to the higher regions. So now, as we know, the moment anyone who thought about meditation, the first thing they would say, hey, I have lots of disturbed thoughts. I want peace of mind and I cannot concentrate. I cannot focus. These are the typical problems when mind starts thinking that it should, because this is a more extreme animated state of the mind, extreme activity of the mind. So when there is an extreme activity of the mind, it automatically thinks of inactivity. And the moment we go go dive deep into meditation, automatically, within a few minutes, we reach that inactivity state without our knowledge. But the moment mind reaches its inactive state, it starts thinking of the opposite, the active situation. That's why we kind of toggle between this active and inactive states as we start meditation. It's a very natural process. When there is no activity, mind thinks of activity. When there is activity, mind thinks of inactivity. It's always looking at the opposite direction. But at some point, what happens is as mind starts going into this super conscious state, it starts realizing its solace. It starts realizing its natural state, and it starts becoming that. So the nature of the mind is it becomes that where it puts on, right? Suppose you look at a person and you don't like that person. You have certain history with that person. Suddenly there is a feeling of dejection comes in, and it automatically starts affecting your conscious state. Even the happiness has its own effect, and even sadness has its own effect. Anger has its own effect, like you heard in Daji's presentation just now. So everything is disturbing this vibrational field. So once the mind knows its solace, once the mind start becoming sensitive to these disturbances, it knows how to go back to its place of refuge where it can rest. But we need to give that space to the mind. So far, it has not identified that space. All that it is thinking is, I don't like this activity of the mind. It has to go back to the inactive state, but it doesn't know where to go. So through meditational practices, we realize that space. We understand that space. Rather, mind understands that space. Once it knows it, it's easier to take that mind over there. So once that start going over there and again, now it realizes the difference between the active state and the inactive state. So that's why once it starts realizing it, now it moves from thinking to feeling. The thinking is an active state, feeling is almost inactive. Now, slowly it learns this. When this feeling becomes permanent, slowly it learns to conduct through feeling rather than thinking. But it appears like thinking, there is thinking, but it is lesser and lesser vibration, which is feeling. All right. So this is very important aspect to understand why, thinking to feeling, what is the difference? So all this is happening in the field of heart. That's why we meditate on the heart. Okay. So again, what's happening? So when, like I mentioned, this condition we experienced during meditation. During meditation, we have to hold on to it. How do you hold on to it? By remembering. And why even remembrance comes? And remembrance comes because in that inactive state, deep meditation, this consciousness at some level, comes in contact with the soul. And nature of the soul is certain joy, certain bliss we feel. It's like this, suppose if you like ice cream. I like Cold Stone ice cream. I go and get some Cold Stone ice cream. And 2 days later, 3 days later, I want to eat that ice cream again because I remember the taste which I enjoyed. So the moment that enjoyment, the memory of it comes in, though without having an ice cream, I know the feeling of it. Right? So the mind starts feeling it. The mind knows that enjoyment. It's already feeling it without having the ice cream. But we don't stop there. We go and get the ice cream so that I make that feeling real again. Similarly, once we enjoy this state, once we rejoice this state, condition, we automatically starts feeling about it. As we feel, as we remember, it becomes a reality again and again throughout the day. So that's how I can hold on to this consciousness. And I can hold on to this constant awareness of that feeling, that inner state, so that I can continue to be in that state, in the deep state of awareness, consciousness all the time. See, how do we know the mind? We know the mind through thinking. How do you know the consciousness? We know the consciousness only through this feeling and awareness. Otherwise, there is no sensory system inside us to feel the consciousness. Lot of times, this is the confusion. Like I mentioned, right? We don't see the space, but space is all around us. We are within the space. But can we feel the space? Impossible. But the mere fact I'm fit in some place, my house is in some place, my whole planet is in some place, is a proof of that existence of that space. Similarly, through this feeling and consciousness, I realize, through this awareness and feeling, I realize there is consciousness. So feeling is the result of exercising consciousness. Awareness is the result of exercising this consciousness. Thinking is the result of exercising the mind. That's why, we should not be confused or, wondering whether ever we can feel the consciousness, but we are feeling it all the time. It's just that because this mind, this vibrational field is not refined, this awareness is somewhat disturbed. So the mind is moving from thinking to feeling. Then what about intellect, the buddhi? So intellect is moving from intellect itself into wisdom. But what? Sorry.
Can you please explain the subconscious and superconscious as little expansion in that? Subconscious is like this individual impression which I have inside me. Is it correct? And superconscious is a collective awareness. Is it correct?
Okay, I will give you a much simpler way to look at it.
Okay.
Right? Suppose in the ocean, right? What is ocean filled with? Water.
Yes.
If you go deep into the ocean, there is a lot of stillness. As you move towards the banks of the ocean, right? What happened to that stillness? There's a lot of waves. Correct?
Yes.
But our waves are different from the water in the middle of the ocean?
No,
It's no different. It's the same water. So depending on its vibratory state, you're calling it as a wave, you are calling it as a ripple, you're calling it as still. The same water. So when you talk about subconscious, superconscious, and all these levels of consciousness, is what is the vibratory state of that consciousness? The aware consciousness which we are, at a lower level we are feeling, because we call it lower level, because there's more vibrations, more awareness. As it becomes subtle, it becomes subconsciousness, superconsciousness, and supraconsciousness. We give all these terms to the same thing. They're not different things. It's the same thing.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah. I'll think more about it. Yes, I got the idea now, but I'll expand on that. Yeah, I'll think and.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So intellect is a power of discrimination. So this power of truth, this power of discrimination, we are always, living in the opposites: good choices versus bad choices, good versus bad, virtue versus, sin. All this discrimination happening, the intellect is always living in the opposites. So because the intellect is living in the opposites, it's always evaluating the choices based on the desire and based on its survival, based on many things, of course. So it's always making these choices, um, whether the choice is going to, help resolving certain desire or help resolving certain issue and things like that. I mean, there's so many ways we use the intellect, correct? But when it evolves into wisdom, so like I said, because it's living in the opposites, it's always have to toggle between the two. So that means it increases the activity of the mind. But what happens if that choice kind of becomes so intuitive, and it draws that in it from a very inner space, that intuition? So then what happens is the choices become very clearer and more clearer. So it doesn't have to toggle between this versus that. That means the vibratory level or the of the thinking mind kind of comes down. So that's why we say the wisdom is that intuitive evolution of this intellect, where it makes the decisions without any disturbance, without any toggling. It's almost instant. So that's why it's called wisdom. Sometimes we are able to apply it, sometimes we are not. But as through this meditative practices, and I'm going to talk about another key thing which is going to play this role, in towards the development of this wisdom, is what we call the yogic energy or the transmission in the heartfulness system. I'm going to take up that topic in our next session. So next session, we are completely dedicate to this idea of transmission. But I want to mention that here, it plays a vital role in this expansion of consciousness. Very much. Right? All right. So that talks about intellect and wisdom. Let's move to the next topic. So now, as we see the purification, what is now, now you must have understood what is this idea of purification. So when there is lot of activity, it creates certain, lot of vibrations, and that kind of distorts this entire energy field on the subtle body. So the purity is nothing but removing this distortion and realigning it. And how do we do it? We do it as a process of cleaning, through the process of cleansing in the heartfulness system. We all spoke about it, but if anyone joined new today, the easiest way to understand what this cleansing, how to do the cleansing process is, you can go to heartfulness.org and you can register for master classes, and the second day class talks about cleansing. Or you can schedule an appointment with me. This meeting ID is same as the mobile number, my mobile number. You can text me and schedule a session with me. So this, through cleansing process, we clear this turbulence in the mind. And as this turbulence is created, removed, suddenly the activity of the mind comes down, calms down. And it resets the entire entire subtle body's energy field. So that's why the cleansing is very important. So this disturbance, when it settles down, what we call it as grossness. So this cleaning process removes that grossness, that settling, which happened due to a lot of activity in the subtle body. So as this cleansing happens, like I was explaining last time, right? It's like, take a big jar with the sand, put water in it. That water is not free to move, though it is the water is there in that sand. As we remove the sand, the water becomes more and more free within the jar. Let's say if there is no sand in the jar, the water is free to move within that jar. That you call as expansion of consciousness or evolution of consciousness, to simply understand. So as this all this accumulation, disturbance is removed, there is an expansion. The expansion happens because now the subtle body, the distance between the causal and the physical is growing. So there is more and more room for the consciousness to move. And that is what we call as evolution. So it is as this evolves, it comes in contact with that higher essence. Just like mind takes the form wherever it is put on, this consciousness, as it is evolving, as it is coming in contact with the Supreme Soul, it is taking the shape of it. And ego. A lot of times ego is referred in a very bad connotation. But ego is very much necessary to do anything. Without ego, every aspect of my daily life is dependent on it, right? But ego has, certain characteristics. It is my identity. Without ego, there is no identity of me. And how can I function daily, right? So this ego is pretty much a required entity, and it also contributes a lot in this evolution of this consciousness. So all that we need to do is refine this ego. Like you see on the slide, the ego is like a black hole. So this ego is is pulling the consciousness, it's contracting it. It's not allowing that consciousness to expand. But how do we reduce these tendencies is by becoming humble. And through ego, we are a lot of things, good things happening, bad things happening, right? Like you see on that picture, right? So any action emerge through my physical organs and through intellect, through mind. We own that action. When I own that action, the ego says I did it. So it creates certain emotional reaction to it. That emotional reaction is stored as the memory of the consciousness. Everything it's a consciousness. The mind is of the consciousness, the intellect is of the consciousness, and ego is also of the consciousness. This memory stored is also of the consciousness. And this memory store, as it is increasing, it distorts our choices, it distorts our intellect, it distorts our thinking. Thus, it is impacting, it's contracting this expansion more and more. But once this ego refines more and more, because through ego function, this store is happening because it's owning it. It start releasing that more and more. That means our collection of impressions are also going less and less. And it is easing the hold on this consciousness. So thus, the consciousness can expand very freely. And if you see on this slide, we have to be more and more humble. And if I can tell that to myself 100 times, 1,000 times, million times, but I can never become humble. So the question for everyone to introspect, is how can I become humble? And we can discuss about it in our next session. We'll start with this question in our next session. How to become humble. All right. Then the mind, we all know, we spoke about it. Through the mind, we evolve from thinking to feeling. And without the mind, there's no way I can meditate. It's impossible. So mind is a key element in the expansion of my consciousness because it allows me to meditate. And this chit in Sanskrit means consciousness. Chitta means the memory associated with that consciousness, the memory store of the consciousness. If you add A, it becomes a memory, it is chit as consciousness. So, like we understood, by exercising my mind, intellect, and ego, I can expand my consciousness. By through cleansing process, I can become lighter and lighter. And so, but then why expansion of this consciousness, if you ask that question, right? Because all the, like now we understood all this vibratory state distortion and everything is happening because of the external influences, my reaction to external influences. So I want to kind of reduce it more and more. I want to make it more and more subtler. So this expansion of consciousness contributes to that. It kind of sort of, how do I say, it creates an inner and outer state at the same level, so that the disturbances are less and less, and the mind starts dwelling, merging into certain state of silence, and we see the silence is spreading all over. So that is what happens when this consciousness is expanded. Not only that, it's easier for this consciousness to come in contact with this higher essence, inner essence, so that it is taking, it's drawing its inspiration and the life force, we call it the transmission from this inner essence. So that's how this expansion of consciousness contributes. So it is very much necessary. Otherwise, I'm subjected to my lower consciousness, I'm subjected to all the disturbances. I don't know how to solve the problem. So here, knowledge is not an accumulation. Spiritual state is not an accumulation. Knowledge is also being, spiritual state is also being. So we can take, if you have any questions, I can answer, then let's see how much time we have. Oh, we're almost there. So we'll just do the relaxation today, 5 minutes, so please ask me if you have any questions. So,
Shrikant,
yeah, sure.
I have a question. So when I try to meditate, think about the divine light in the heart. And I stay there, I cannot move any further. Many times, just get stuck with the heart, and then I'm supposed to go into nothingness or whatever. Most of the time, I don't, except in very rare occasions. Somebody give me a sitting, then I go deeper. If I do it myself, it doesn't happen. Is there any solution for that?
Sure. Well, I mean, again, like I mentioned, point A meditation and point B cleaning contributes a lot towards it because there's a lot of activity. All this accumulation is happening on point B.
Mm.
So before my meditation, when I sit by myself, I must do this point B cleaning for 5 to 10 minutes.
Mm.
And then with the prayerful mind, if I sit, within few times, you will feel a lot of difference in the meditation. Because all this activity, the impressions of this daily activity, our reactions, actions, emotions, all this accumulation happens on point B. So the point B cleaning is very effective, in making the meditation calmer and deeper.
Yeah.
Shrikant bhai, this is Sesha. Can I add to that?
Sure.
So one of the things that seem to have worked for me is to first of all approach each meditation with a blank slate, without, and basically just to and be open to whatever comes and not have any expectations. The more, I guess, open I find myself, the better, I guess the meditation is that much more effective. So if I just approach the meditation with with a lot of things on my mind, or with a certain set of expectations, then it becomes a problem. But if I approach the meditation with I guess, and to see if I can also get somehow or the other at least 10 minutes before the meditation, if I am able to do the cleaning, I think 5 minutes regular and 5 minutes of the point B cleaning, that seems to almost always prove to be very effective for me, at least.
Okay.
Thanks, Ishabhai. And
Thank you.
if there are no questions, we can do.
I have a quick question, Shrikant.
Go ahead, Murray.
So we discussed that the subtle body, we cannot pinpoint it. So we really don't have any physical place for mind or spiritual heart or consciousness.
Yeah.
But yet when we meditate, we focus on the physical location of the heart, or even like point A and B these are just, physical points on the body. So why should we just, focus on the physical location of the heart? Why can't we just, start meditation just, with the supposition that, the divine light is in my spiritual heart?
Yeah. See, the real idea is the divine light is in the spiritual heart. But to start with, we have to feel it somewhere, because the immediate feelings, when I say feel, like I touch my left side, I feel here, right? I don't say I feel here. So we always kind of start our feelings from the physical heart. And medically also, the physical heart is proven as the second mind or second brain. So we kind of start with it. Now, coming to the location of the points, though we kind of putting our hand on a physical location, but that is on the subtle body only. It's not a physical location. And so, see, I mean, for example, I'll tell you, and take a single cellular organism like amoeba. Do they have all these three bodies? Yes. And even like if you go from an animal to the location of these points, change. The location of these chakras changes, from an evolution to evolution. Even in a physical, in a human form also, as the evolution of this mind and the spiritual evolution is happening, things change drastically. But these are the physically we try to locate them on a subtle body, thinking that the entire spiritual heart is from head to toe. According to uh, the master Babuji, one of the teachers of the heartfulness system and the founder, he says his definition of heart is head to toe. That means entire system. But to begin with, we start meditating on the physical heart. But you will also slowly see, as this evolution is happening, your meditation itself is shifting from one location to another location within the subtle body. But to begin with, that's where you start. So that you kind of, see, this whole meditation, idea of meditation is bringing yourself together, right? So in order to bring ourselves together, so when we pray, how do we pray? I mean, we fold our hands, we bring our body together and pray, right? So in meditation also is like that. I mean, we bring at least the physical body together, our senses together. So to do that, you need, where do you bring it together? To, your heart, where you feel, and meditate. But slowly, as the expansion is happening, there is a shift also happening from your left to right to, through all the regions. And then it is all pervading it. As it is expanding, then not only your physical system is included, even your external systems are also included in your meditation. As it is expanding, the whole universe is included in your meditation. So that's how it is. Now my heart limitations have gone. Now what is my heart? This entire existence. So that's why we are continuously saying this is an expansion, not limited to one idea, one place, one point. Make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Thanks again.
So we'll do a quick 3-minute relaxation and then we can end the session.
Okay.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Heartfulness Relaxation and Meditation. I'm going to walk us through a very simple practice of meditation. We'll begin with relaxation for a few minutes, and then I'll guide you into the meditation part. The total meditation time will be 20 minutes. However, if you can only do 5 or 10 minutes, that's fine. So let's get started. Welcome to the Heartfulness Guided Relaxation. Let's start with our feet. Wiggle your toes and let them relax. Make the thought that a current is flowing up from the earth, relaxing your feet, ankles, calves, and knees. Now this healing current is moving into your thighs and hips, softening the muscles and releasing any tension. Relax your waist and lower back. Allow this current to move up into your chest and upper back and shoulders. Every muscle is deeply relaxing. Now this healing current is moving into your arms, forearms, palms, and fingers, carrying away any tension. Bring your awareness to your neck. Allow every muscle to completely relax. This healing current is now moving up into your face, relaxing the jaw and mouth, the nose and eyes. Now feel your body from the toes to the top of your head is completely relaxed. Gently bring your awareness to your heart. Imagine you're resting your thought on the source of light already present in the heart. Feel it's attracting you inwards. If thoughts arise, gently come back to the source of light already present.
Gently open your eyes. Thank you all for participating today. In our next session, we'll do a deep dive into this aspect of transmission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll stay here if you have any questions, until everyone drops off.
So I had posted a question about wisdom. It comes from clarity of mind, correct? Or it just comes from, it doesn't come from intelligence. Doesn't come from thinking. It just comes to you.
Yeah, but what is clarity of mind, right?
Balance.
It's balance. So when it's in balance, it can tap into this deeper knowledge.
Mm.
So this deeper knowledge we refer as wisdom.
Gotcha.
So it understands, see, what is the difference between a wise person and an intellect person? We have this famous story about three fishes, right?
Mm.
One is a fool, another one is an intellect, another one is wise. So these three fishes heard that there is one fisherman. He said, "Oh, there are a lot of fishes in this pond. I'm going to collect all of them tomorrow. I'll come with my net." And the three fishes hear it, and the first fish says, "I will. Oh, he's going to come tomorrow, so I'm going to hide under the bottom of the pond. I'll not come out all day. I'll quarantine myself." Right? And another intellect fish is so dependent on its intellect. It says, oh, you know, I'm going to escape somehow. And the foolish fish doesn't take any action, right? So all the two of them were caught on the net. The first one has escaped already. And the second fish, it falls, it acts as if it is dead already. Right? So then fisherman thinks, I got a dead fish, and he throws the fish back into the pond. And the foolish fish was caught. So the wisdom is knowing the result of our actions is wisdom. Upfront. I know what's going to happen. But the intellect fish kind of played a game. I mean, it escaped, but it was caught. It was in a situation. It was put into a situation. But the wise fish avoided that situation up front. So wisdom is knowing the result of our actions before we take an action.
And that doesn't come from thinking, it just comes to us.
It just comes to us when we tap deep into our selves, when, deep into our souls. That's why the intellect becomes wisdom, because now it's the consciousness is constantly in touch with my soul. So it is internalized. That's why the wisdom comes.
Thank you.
Right. So, I mean, this whole idea of connecting with super consciousness, I mean, we should not be thinking it like that. See, the mind is always transactional. Because of the transactional mind, what it does is, it is always thinking, oh, I should go into super consciousness, as if we gain something out of it. That's not how a spirituality should be approached. The way it should happen is, we must allow naturally for it to go into this higher consciousness, super consciousness. As we go naturally, this happens. I'll tell you, point A, point B cleaning is so important. It automatically right away puts in the super conscious state. But if you ask me, oh, now I'm in a super conscious state, what is changed in me? Nothing. Right? But all that changes in me is, I suddenly see it's changed a lot. And slowly, once we start realizing the super conscious state, even that becomes an aware state, but it is at a much less vibratory level. Just like I gave that example, right? You go deep into the ocean, the water is stand still. You don't even know if the water is moving or not. What happens if you come to the shores? You see the difference, right? That's all the super conscious state and conscious state is all about.
Brother, this is Vanilla.
Uh-huh.
I have a question extension for that. But that sounds like it's more of smartness, right? Being more smart. The fish survived, the first fish survived because it was smart.
It was wise.
Yeah. So are you saying by meditating, as we meditate, we become more conscious, we become better, more wiser?
We become more wiser because then we choose our activities which is conducive to our spiritual growth. Right? And as we choose our activities conducive to our spiritual growth, my mental activity is at a balanced state all the time.
Mm-hmm.
then we don't indulge in unnecessary things. See, always they say, the opposites will follow, right? There's more pleasure, the pain is followed. There's more enjoyment, the pain is followed. The more entertainment, boring is followed. Because
Yeah, but
you observe the kids today, they're mentally so much stimulated that the moment they don't get the stimulation, they're bored. And you keep hearing them complaining, oh, we are bored and we are bored. But look at ourselves, when we are growing up, we don't have that much mental stimulation. I mean, for me, there was no TV even until my engineering in our house.
Right.
Only TV we could watch is through our neighbor's window. But now, I mean, we were never bored. I was never bored.
I know.
Now, as our mental stimulation is increasing, we are bored because the opposite follows immediately. So that's why when I'm in a balanced state, so my indulgence of the mind is also, very wise. There will be wise choices. Then my life is also accordingly molded. So there is less suffering in life. So suffering or no suffering is nothing to do with the financial state.
Correct. It's all in our mind.
They say, more and more millionaires go to the psychiatrist in this country. Why? I mean, they had all the happiness they could buy or they could entertain. So it has nothing to do with it. It's something to do with the balance, wise state of the mind.
Correct. You are saying in spiritual side, but in general, when we observe outside, either at work or either at work or in friends, the wiser, I mean, they act smart. They try to cover their back always, and they try to behave smart using the other people. So I know they're spiritual. You are saying spiritual part, but when we look at it, they're living their life.
No, that's what. I mean, we have not seen the other side. If you live in their mind, then you will know how much fear in them to cover their backs all the time. It's not about smart thing. So here it's not about covering your backs. It's all about.
I agree. Yeah.
So if I am doing the right thing, even at my workplace, I'm automatically, my situation is very much secured. But even if it is not secured, I have done the right thing. There is no fear in me. There's no guilt in me. So I am free.
Self-satisfaction. Yeah.
I'm free and self-satisfied, and one job is not end of my life, right? There are infinite places I can go to, infinite horizons if I have the clarity of the mind.
Sure.
But we work, I mean, as it should be done. I mean, we all work hard. We try to stabilize our situation, financial situation all the time, so that I can pay attention to my spiritual life. But we don't have to look at them as two different things. They're part and parcel. My spiritual life and the material life, if they are not together, if I see them separate, then there is a big problem.
Yeah, it doesn't balance.
Yeah. There's nothing called a spiritual life. There's nothing called a material life. There is only life. We try to differentiate these two as if we have a choice. There is no choice there.
Got it. Thanks, brother.
All right. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Brother Cody, how are you?
Thank you, brother.